morning, everyone, and welcome back to Grindhouse, where we drink coffee and talk about movies. My name is Leah Diana, and with my co-host and boyfriend, Sean Tatro, we shall be winding back the reels to 1997. Born as an 18th century lord, Louis is now a bicentennial vampire, telling his story to an eager biographer. Suicidal after the death of his family, he meets Lestat, a vampire who persuades him to choose immortality over death and become his companion. Eventually, gentle Louis resolves to leave his violent maker, but Lestat guilts him into staying by turning a young girl, whose addition to the family breeds even more conflict in Interview with the Vampire. Let's get into it.
What do you say we get started?
So you want me to tell you the story of my life? I'll tell you my story. I'll tell you all of it.
Gee, how?
I'm flesh and blood, but not human. I haven't been human for 200 years.
From the novel by Anne Rice. From Neil Jordan, the director of The Crying Game.
I've come to answer your prayers. Life has no meaning anymore, does it?
His name is Lestat.
But what if I could give it back to you? Pluck out the pain and give you another life. One you could never imagine. I can see you lying on a bed of satin.
He chose one man. He gave him infinite power, eternal life, and a daughter who would be forever young.
This is the only real evil left.
And then he took the light of day.
You're a vampire who never knew what life was until it ran out in a red gush over your lips.
I can't stand this any longer.
You made us what we are, didn't you?
God kills indiscriminately, and so shall we.
You like dying? You condemn me to hell! Monster.
One happy family.
Take her, Louis. End her suffering and yours. But do not doubt, you are a killer.
I want some more.
Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Stephen Ray, Antonio Banderas, Kirsten Dunst, and Christian Slater. Interview with the Vampire.
Spread the word, you dirty cocksuckers. Tell all your grave robbing friends I want them out of the city now!
The nightmare of insane murder. From the depths of hell. Through the angel of death. Only at the Grindhouse.
Hey, honey.
Hello.
How'd you like the movie?
I didn't hate it.
Really?
Yeah.
But you did make quite a few of those faces.
Well, a lot of it was due to this was made in 97.
Yeah.
So it's there were like technical things that I noticed that were just like but
Like film choices?
no, not so much that like flaws, things like that, just like that were unavoidable or that they didn't notice or something like that. But
I have never noticed any flaws or issues because I focus so hard on the story.
there's one glaring one
Okay.
that like stood out to me.
We will get to it. So this one was my pick this week because I have an unhealthy obsession with this movie. Have since I was younger. This movie came out when I was just becoming a teenager. So in my mind, it was like I'm a brooding teenager and there's vampires and ooh, darkness and ooh. And then like once I was in my 20s, I actually read most of this book And I loved the way the story was told. And I've never touched any of Anne Rice's other stuff other than a story series called The Taming of Sleeping Beauty, or The Claiming of Sleeping Beauty. It is an erotic series. BDSM, I'm sorry. So definitely, if you don't shy away from that kind of thing, pick it up. It's great. Spoiler alert, there's a lot of sex. But it has to do with that control kind of thing that I'm very interested in. This movie is more or less I don't know, I feel like the conflict is a family dynamic conflict, a generational trauma conflict that I kind of enjoy.
Okay.
I probably see this about once a year. And whether I pay attention to it or not, you saw me, I'm engrossed in this film. But I also am like reading Wikipedia things like, how old is Claudia when she dies? Who's this vampire? What about this? Like, I'm always looking at other stuff because I've seen it so much. But I have 6 notes on this movie because I can pretty much go through this movie start to finish.
Okay. So before we dive into the breakdown or anything like that, this movie was directed by Neil Jordan, based on a screenplay by Anne Rice, which was based on her novel of the same name.
Yes.
Stars Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Stephen Ray, Antonio Banderas, Christian Slater, and Kirsten Dunst. The movie originally released... Huh?
What?
I have some conflicting information.
Really?
The film originally released on November 11th, 1994.
But it says 1997. Am I wrong? I'm wrong. It's 1994, guys. I fucked up.
Okay, so our intro's wrong, but that's okay.
That's fine. So that would put this movie at, I was 9 when this came out. But I didn't really get into it till I was a teenager.
So this was made on a budget of $60 million. And it took home an overall box office of $223.7 million.
So it's safe to say this was a hit.
Tiny bit
of hit. This movie was, if I remember back then, a big fucking deal.
Still a big deal now.
The acting in this movie, y'all probably know by now, I fucking hate Tom Cruise. I'm okay with him in this movie. But I love the fact that I get to watch him get stabbed, bleeded out, and burned to death. Very much. But even down to Kirsten Dunst at 9, 10, 11 years old, you don't think she's a kid. She's wise beyond her years as Claudia.
Yeah, she plays this part with such a haunting maturity. Like, she sells that conniving nature to a terrifying effect.
She's a beautifully young, cunning killer.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that this is the same girl from Bring It On, I believe she's in Mona Lisa's Smile. I'm not 100% sure. Spider-Man. Yeah. Same girl. Her range at that age was incredible.
Yeah.
She convinces me that she is at points you see her as a 35-year-old trapped in a child's body. And at the end, she's a 65-year-old woman trapped in a child's body. And she's playing off with Brad Pitt like they are old friends, centuries old, that they know each other intimately. It's like this girl's 10 when she's doing this. You knew at that point this girl was going fucking places. I think she's also did the vagina monologues.
I don't know. You're talking to the wrong guy.
I like Kirsten Dunst. I think she's pretty cool.
So where do we begin diving into this?
So we begin in a very, like... We begin with the sweeping overhead aerial view of San Francisco, landing into a very famous corner building.
Yes. And for me, I didn't really pay too much attention to the shots throughout this because they were very standard introductory shots into the city. But to me, the driving force behind this opening was the score. It was this bold operatic arrangement with like this a very angelic voice and strings, and it just kind of guides you into the beginnings of this story.
So how I've always taken it, because I've seen this so many times, is it is a haunting tale about how Louis was a very caring vampire, very mortal-like vampire. And when Claudia died, it went with him. And the score that is playing is Claudia's theme. That is the same theme that happens when he finds her and she's gone.
Okay.
So I've always taken it as, and it's weird, and I don't know if it's true because I haven't gone deeper in the books. I take it as that's Claudia's spirit guiding you to it. But there is the shot where they're going through the city while the credits are coming up, and you can see the people looking at something. And I was like, is this supposed to be Daniel, who is Christian Slater, who plays the, like, recording the story? Is this Louis? But they're already up there. Or is this Lestat walking through the crowd?
That's a good point,
That
especially based on that ending.
Yeah, because I never really paid attention until now, because it's your fault, because I pay attention to everything now, that they're walking and these people are like staring and looking at this. I'm like, oh, it could be Louis, it could be Daniel, but they're already up there. It's probably Lestat. He probably knows it's Louis. He's probably been stalking him like he has been for a couple centuries now.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing that I really noticed with this time is who's that walking the streets till we get to where Daniel and Louis are.
And to say this movie wastes no time getting into the namesake. Like,
Nope.
It literally jumps us right into that notable journalist interviewing a man who claims to be a vampire.
Yep. Yep. And I love how it doesn't waste any time. Like, there's no exposition, there's no, like, weird stuff. It's put the tape in, I'll tell you my story, and you jump right into it.
Yeah.
And it wastes no time. It does what our previous movie, it did what, not our previous movie, I was busting, oh my god, Blood Rage. How Blood Rage, like, was missing certain things in it.
Yeah.
This gives you that Louis was 24, his wife and child died in birth. He does not want to be around anymore. The world is empty. Boom, 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 boom. You have the reason why he became a vampire right there.
Yeah.
They don't waste any time with, like, a prequel or any of that shit. They go right into it. I like that. Because I want to know the story of what the fuck happened to this, to the vampire, and what happened during his years. I love the way Brad Pitt portrays mortal Louis. He just looks sad and angry and just fucking dead inside.
Yes. However, at the same time, the way this film portrays him during the first moments where we see him, to me, it looked like he stepped off the cover of a cheap romance novel. Like,
I mean, yeah.
One of those ones that, like, Fabio would be on.
With the horse and shirtless,
Big
like,
flowing hair.
hello, I'm Fabio. Side note, one year Fabio rode a roller coaster. Don't know what the roller coaster is, don't know anything about it. But he got hit by a bird in the face. Started bleeding, and his hair was still waving in the wind with blood. And anytime I think of those covers, I think of Fabio getting hit by a fucking bird. I love it. I've never read any of those books. I hate those books. So the opener is Louis at his plantation. He's going out into, like, the city of New Orleans, which it was back in 1791. 1791 or 1794, I'm not 100% sure. I know 1791 was what the year he said. 1794 is the year he became a vampire. I think. I'm not 100% sure. I kind of, like, wrote shit down. Oh no, 1791 is when he turns into a vampire. 1794 is another thing, so I'll go back. It doesn't waste any time in introducing you to Lestat.
Yeah, that's true. He's brought in quite early into this. And one of the notes I put down was, I love the fact that I don't need to see Tom Cruise's face to know that I'm watching him perform.
Mm-hmm.
So he's introduced as a silhouette and kind of in a crowd, like he's in this building, in this party, or
It's like a tavern.
yeah. And he's moving through this room, and it's just a silhouette. But like, I've seen Tom Cruise in so many things by this point, I know his body movement, and it's just like, I was like, yeah, that's Tom Cruise.
And he, as much as I fucking hate this man, he is pompous and douchey, just enough to be Lestat. I mean,
Yeah.
you've seen, we can't do Queen of the Damned on here. Queen of the Damned was 2002. Stuart Townsend played Lestat in that movie. I still don't think Stuart Townsend was good enough to be Lestat at moments because it needed that Tom Cruise arrogance.
It's also a very different Lestat. Like, it's...
And that's the point. Like, that Lestat was supposed to be very different. Like, it's a different, like, vision of the movies. Even, Louis not in it, but, Armand is in it. And Armand is a completely different person. He's a white dude. Antonio Banderas is a Spanish dude. Like, but I love the way that it weaves it into vampires are so mysterious. It could look or be anybody. Which, that's how I put it when they announced Queen of the Damned. And I'm like, it's like 10 years later and Tom Cruise don't look so good.
Well, yeah, it's a very different vision of these characters. It's also a vastly different era of time.
The MTV era,
Yeah,
as I call it.
So, like, this movie's set in mostly the
it's 1700s to 1800s. So it goes from
but then the interview
1794 to
is like
1850.
the 90s, early 90s maybe?
Like
now?
2000s.
It was now at that point.
Yeah. And this one, while it's more romanticized, it's more fantasized. That one's emo, grungy, but it still has that air of, like, romantic beauty to it. Only in our generation, or what our generation and priors, like the millennials and I think it's the Gen X. Is it the Gen X? That's the
I don't understand any of those fucking labels.
But, like, it's that generation there. Where when I first saw Queen of the Damned, I'm like, yeah, I'm emo, I'm broody. Now I'm like, no, you weren't. You were still blonde. So, you know. We go through the whole Louis gets turned into a vampire. He dies as immortal and he becomes a vampire. And now he has a whole new. He's supposed to have a new outlook on life, but he has the same outlook. He's still
miserable.
He's not miserable, but he thought this would be the answer to the emptiness, and it just made him feel more empty because there's no answers. Who are the first vampires? Where are they from? What is the purpose? None of these answers happen for him.
No.
Lestat doesn't give them. Armand wants to give them, but only if Armand gets what he wants. And
right.
Louis never gives Armand what he wants. And it's just kind of cool to see this whole, like, here's this beautiful fantasy of being a vampire, and through Louis' eyes, it's like, no, I'm in hell. This is hell. I should have stayed mortal. Like, but he still retains that mortal feeling. Like, he feels guilty and he feels sympathy for humans. He won't kill them. He won't do anything. And it's kind of his downfall. And that's pretty much most of the beginning of the story, where he lives on his plantation. The slaves are very afraid of him because Lestat is basically killing them. He's living off chickens and cows and rats, Louis.
Yeah.
And Lestat's like becoming the plague on the plantation. And you pointed out that the girl that played Yvette,
what's her... I can never pronounce her name.
No, I can't either. Oh, what was her name?
Hang on.
Her last name is Newton.
Yeah.
Thendwe? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce that exactly, but...
Yeah, but she's an amazing actress, and I didn't realize this was one of her first performances.
Yeah, I know her a lot from, like, later performances. I believe she's actually... Oh, she's in so many things.
Westworld, Mission Impossible 2, Norbert, The Pursuit of Happiness, The Chronicles of Riddick, Crash, 2012, Beloved. It's not loading any more than that, but yeah, she's
in tons, and she's incredible every performance she gives. I never, like, so as she's gotten older, the thing, I never knew her really from her younger years. Not that she's old now or anything, but as she's gotten older, her, like, appearance has changed. Like, so her, like, bone structure's gotten more prominent.
Yeah.
She was fucking gorgeous when she was in this movie.
I
couldn't believe it. I was like, wow.
Like I said to you while we were watching it, her and the woman who played Madeline, they were like my first girl crushes. Like, I remember seeing Yvette the first time going, oh, she's gorgeous. Like, I was younger going, I want to look like her when I grow up. Like, she's pretty. But yeah, she was, oh my god. And they do, nobody has bad acting in this.
No.
Everyone's acting is, oh my god. I mean, obviously I'll gush about Kirsten Dunst till the day I die, because at 10 years old, like, come on.
Yeah, she absolutely killed this performance.
Yep. There's a reason why she's still, to this day, and she's 35 years old now, she's still a really big name actress. Like, holy shit. What's the next?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about actors, like, I feel like everybody gives, like, 100% to this part. Like, I know you don't like Tom Cruise,
Nope.
but I still feel like he brought a lot to this to Lestat.
Yeah.
In this, like, a lot of that, the body movement he uses, a lot of the attitude, like, that comes out of him in, like, certain sequences. It's things that most actors wouldn't be able to give you.
The fact that when he's being threatened by Claudia and when he's in danger, he has those, like, he's swift, he's sharp, he's angry, he has this rage, and I'm like, I hate this man, but I love this character.
Yeah, but he's good at showing you that.
He's a good villain.
Yes.
Tom
And he
Cruise
doesn't play villains enough, I don't think.
This is about the most villainy thing I know he does, because Lestat, like, this movie, Lestat's a villain.
He's done a few throughout the years, but, like, never anything that was strong enough. Like, I would love to see him take on a real fucking good
An actual villain role. The last thing I watched of his was the movie where it's kind of like that. He's a soldier. Emily Blunt's in it, and he wakes up every day.
Oh, Edge of Tomorrow.
I saw that. My friend Erica made me watch that, and I was like, all right, I'll watch this with you. To be honest, I hated every minute of it. But he was still really good. Like, I can't stand the man personally. I don't like him. But one of my favorite movies is Mission Impossible. I love Mission Impossible. And I always thought him as Ethan Hawke and the actual man named Ethan Hawke, I thought it was the same person. I thought real Ethan Hawke was actually a spy, and they were portraying him.
So Ethan Hawke is the actor. Ethan Hunt is Mission Impossible.
Same thing. same thing. But you knew who I meant.
Yes.
So.
I think Brad Pitt, obviously, always does a really great job. This performance, I think, was really... He brings a lot of somber, like, energy.
He has to be sad. He has to be... He has to be the original emo. He is like, that's the only way I can describe it. That's the only words. Brooding, and I have so many problems. Like, he's that dude. But it comes with, you know, in the beginning, it's like, you chose this life. You got to get through it. And then Claudia happens, and it's like, okay, now you have something to live for because you lost your wife, your child. Now you have kind of that. And when I say that, I literally mean Claudia, as she gets older, becomes not only his child,
but sort of his wife.
Sort of his wife, like,
in a way.
Like, it's described in like Cliff Notes, or like a little thing here that I was researching, that Claudia starts out as his daughter and ends up as like his wife. Like, they are so strongly bonded that he doesn't see the childlike form. He knows that there is a actual thriving woman, and they are only 20-something years apart.
Yeah.
So in 1791, when he turned, he was 25 years old. In 1794, she supposedly is supposed to be 5 years old when she turns. They're not that far off. They're like maybe 30 years. So once she becomes 30, he's like 60, but their minds are still like, she's caught up to him, and they're older souls living together.
Right.
Like, it's incredible.
Brad Pitt's really good at these types of parts. Like, I think the most similar thing I can relate to his performance here is his performance in Benjamin Button. Because, like, throughout that whole movie, he's like very, like, somewhat, you're supposed to get like this world weariness from him, but it's that, like, kind of docile nature that he carries throughout the whole thing. He obviously has moments where it's a little more energetic in both movies, but I don't know, like, he's very, very good at selling that.
He is. And I could not see anybody else in this part. And I know that there's a series coming out by AMC. They have new actors, and I showed you a picture when I was selecting this tiny little fucking thing over here, where it's Jacob Anderson as Louis. I think that's brilliant. I like Jacob Anderson. He has such a range. I've seen him do like exciting, happy things, and then we know him from The Unsullied on Game of Thrones. I'm very excited to see that, but I secretly, Brad Pitt will always be Louis to me. Always. That beautiful face, that, I mean, in the 90s, Brad Pitt was like the dude everybody wanted to either be or be with.
Brad Pitt still looks fucking good.
Yeah. I saw a picture of him now. How old is that man? Is it gonna break my heart if I look this up? Brad Pitt is 58 years old, and boy oh boy, oof. Yep, still a good looking man.
Another person to note here is Christian Slater.
Yes.
Not in the movie very much.
No.
But Christian Slater is not really known for being that great of an actor. He takes a lot of like parts that are kind of beneath him, to be honest.
Was he in Batman?
No.
What else? What the? I gotta look it up.
Personally, like, I've always liked him. Like, he does a lot of movies that I've enjoyed him in. True Romance is like a good one that
Oh, he's in the Heathers?
Yep, he's in the Heathers.
Oh boy.
But did you know that he wasn't supposed to do this part?
I think I remember he wasn't supposed to be doing this part. Someone else was, and I just don't remember who.
So Christian Slater was given the role of Malloy after the death of River Phoenix. River Phoenix was supposed to play that part.
He died like 93, 94.
Yep.
You know, I will say, River Phoenix, the only thing I know him from is Last Crusade, Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm going to butcher this, and I do it on purpose, and everybody can comment, but I don't care. Joaquin Phoenix, his brother.
Joaquin.
Nope, I'm never changing it. It's second nature now, man. you can still see the grief in that man's eyes.
Yes.
It's like he never got over the death of his brother ever.
I mean, it's a hard thing to let go of.
And River passed away at a club from a drug overdose. Like,
It's another interesting little fact about it is that when he took this role, Christian Slater donated his entire salary to two of River Phoenix's favorite charities.
wow.
He didn't get paid at all to do this.
Damn. That I did not know. And I'm a huge fan of this movie, and I didn't know. Like, it sucked. River would have been such a good...
He would have played that part really
oh my
well.
god, he would have. Because at some points at the end when Christian or Daniel is like, I want to be you, blah, 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 and I don't fully believe it out of Christian. Like, I hate to say it, but I'm like, did you listen to any of the story? But knowing River's kind of the way he portrayed stuff, I can see the passion behind his eyes in that point.
Yeah.
That bums me out. Anyways, moving on.
Moving on.
Let's not get bummed out this episode. So we get to the point where Louis and Lestat are traveling, going to either New Orleans or they're going back to where they are, and they're taking over these beautiful townhouses and getting these ladies of the night. And, you know, Lestat is ever trying to get Louis to break down and become the killer that he's supposed to be. Like, you're not this mortal, you're a killer. Like, you need to be what you are. And Louis refuses, feeding on rats and any other thing that he can. And it gets so bad that Louis leaves and goes to a plague area and finds Claudia holding the hand of her crusty dusty dead plague-ridden mama. And oh my god, when you look at this, it is a crusty, crispy corpse.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god. And Kirsten is supposed to be portraying a 5-year-old. She doesn't look 5, but she doesn't look 10. She's kind of short. She's very, like, petite. And at times, like, I laugh when there are moments where Brad has to, like, literally pick her up and run around with her. And I'm like, Kirsten is so tiny at this point that it's just phenomenal. I read where the FX people had to use a lot of makeup and, like, the way they had to have her clothes a little bigger and the way they had to position her to make her, like, seem younger, because this movie was probably shot over a while. It had to be shot in Paris and Louisiana and other places. And it seems that she might have gotten older.
Had like a small spurt.
Yeah, because at the beginning she seems smaller. She seems shorter, but by the end she seems taller, and I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
maybe it's because, she's wearing heels and, you know, she's carrying herself higher and taller.
I noticed it during, like, I think it's right
before the vampires captured them.
No, I noticed it right before. So, you know that, like, kind of montagey part that's right before she turns on Lestat?
Yeah.
There's a shot where, like, I think he's sitting at the piano or something, and she comes in, and I was like, she looks a lot taller in that shot.
Yeah. There are moments where you're like, oh, she's tiny and petite and small, and then you're like, pickup shots, a year later, growth spurt, she's wearing heels. It's the 1800s, like. And I can't get over how well she does. Like, you're convinced she's a young girl in that performance. You're convinced she's just a little child. The way she's like, where's mama? Monsieur. Like, she's very polite and sweet. And like, oh, I want some more after she's turned, and, you know, never in the house. Like, she seems like a little kid.
Yeah.
And then by the time you get to the part where she has that huge fight with the guys, she seems decades older. And that could be a matter of days in movie world, where she could have played that part one day and the next day we're like, oh, we're gonna go to the last scene where, you know, you're wearing the ball gown and you meet Madeline. It is. I'm like, how did this little girl stay in this character so well?
Years of training.
Yeah, she's 10 right
I'm
there. How
aware.
many years is that? Like, holy shit. I love Kirsten Dunst. I've seen a lot of her stuff. She peaked. She peaked and she kept going. Like, I haven't seen her in a lot of stuff lately, and, you know, fuck, the money she made on this, she could have retired as a kid.
Yeah.
Right?
Something I'd like to... It's actually more of a question.
Yeah.
Is this one of those movies that, like, is praised in any way by specifically, like, the LGB community or anything like that?
You know, surprisingly, I don't know that answer.
I only wonder because, like, it, especially in the very beginning moments of this movie with, like, the scenes between Louis and Lestat and stuff, I just, like, I know vampire stories in general carry this, a very naturally sexual nature.
Yes.
But just the fact that it's, like, between two men, and it's, like, there's later scenes with Antonio Banderas as well, that, like, it's very close in nature and sensual. And I don't know, I've just, those moments kind of made me wonder, like, I wonder if or why they're not.
I mean, I believe that vampire lore or stuff like that is their beautiful, like, very, like, alluring creatures. Like, they're not humans, they're creatures.
Yeah.
And I believe, this is my opinion, that vampires don't see gender. Vampires don't see that. They see someone who you would make a good companion. You would be a good person to walk the rest of the world with me, or walk our eternity with. They don't see, like, the point of Louis and Claudia by the end, you know, before she dies, she's 65 years old. She carries herself like a woman who has been around the world decades with this man who is her companion, who they are both in love.
Yeah.
And it's that point of, like, that's a childlike vampire, and Louis doesn't see Claudia as a child. She sees him as an equal, much like Armand. Sorry. Armand sees Louis as, like, an equal, a companion, someone he can share his life with.
Well, and there's definitely a, just like an infatuation angle between Lestat and Louis.
I mean, Louis, I think Lestat was, like, attracted to the way Louis sees the world.
Yeah.
And maybe Lestat wanted to see that way of the world too, but like Lestat has said, he was not given the choice to turn. I think it was Marquez. I don't have time to look it up. It's a lot. But his maker didn't give him a choice. He was turned. He was taken, he was turned, and that was it.
Yeah.
It kind of touches on it if people have seen Queen of the Damned, what happens to Lestat. But Lestat grew up in Paris, and it was just him and his mother, and his mother was very sickly. His mother made money and sent him away to go to be an actor with his friend, and he was turned while he was away. And I've read, like, little tidbits of this, and I was reading it a little bit, where Lestat never had choices.
Yeah.
So he's very aggressive, and he's very like, I'll give you the choice I didn't have. But still, he doesn't give them a choice because he doesn't answer the questions after you turn. Like, oh, okay, you have the choice, but I'm not giving you anything afterwards.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be a dick. And that's why I think Tom Cruise does a great job in this role. Because he's naturally a dick.
I didn't entirely like the vampire looks.
Oh, the porcelain skin with the veins and the eyes when they get enraged are, like, blue.
I didn't mind, so, like, the eyes, the skin, I didn't mind that. I did think the veins were a bit much.
Well, they had to look pale, like, they don't go in the sunlight.
Which, I understand. Like, I just feel like they were, the way that they're designed, like, the veins themselves, they're a little bit unnatural, they're a little bit unnecessary, they're a little bit distracting.
Yeah.
It made me wonder at points where it's like, how come nobody ever looks at them and is like, is there something wrong with you? I also have a weird fact about how they did those.
Really?
Yeah, like, so apparently all the actors playing vampires were required to hang upside down for up to 30 minutes during the makeup process. This forced all the blood in their bodies to rush to their heads, causing all their blood vessels in their face to bulge. That way, the makeup artists would then trace over the swollen veins and create that eerie, translucent skin look.
The paper porcelain skin, yeah.
And unfortunately for the actors, they had to repeat this over and over and over. And if anybody knows anything about like prolonged effects of that,
Yeah.
it's not good for your body. It'll actually like fuck you up really bad if you're done hanging like that for too long.
Yeah.
Granted, they were allowed to come down after 30 minutes, but doing it again and again and again, it's going to make you dizzy and uncomfortable, and kudos to them for putting up with it.
That's probably why Tom Cruise is so fucked up now. He had to hang upside down for a very long time. Sorry, Tommy. I have always, I know it's part of the book, I have always hated the fact that they turned Claudia so young. I feel like they could have nursed her back to health. I felt like they could have had a daughter and then waited for her to grow up and then turned her. But I see where Lestat was coming from. He was forcing Louis's hand to stay there. If he gave Louis a reason to stay, he would have to stay.
Right.
And it's like, oh, you manipulative, conniving asshole, turning a 5-year-old little girl into a vampire. What a dick move. Dick move.
Yeah. I get what they were doing. It's kind of a weird subject.
Very, very strange.
Approach, but...
And they say it several times in the movie, like, it is forbidden to make a vampire so young because they don't have the knowledge of right and wrong. They never grow up. She's stuck as a 5-year-old. And a 30-year-old woman as a 5-year-old? That's gonna fuck you up mentally.
That's another good point. That like you said that they mentioned that it's forbidden.
Yep.
This movie, like, it's not something where they lay all the cards out for you right at the start. Like, they literally pepper information about vampiric lore throughout every scene.
Yes.
And you're essentially learning it as Louis is.
Yes.
For the most part.
You sleep in coffins. You can't go out in the sunlight. But, you know, you enjoy garlic. You enjoy, like, Catholicism symbols. Like, it's not a big deal.
I like that there's those details where it's like, oh, these things aren't real. Yeah. Like, so, like, crosses don't affect us. Stakes don't affect us. Dracula's not real. Fucking, sunlight still affects them. They have to sleep in coffins. There was another one that I wrote down here.
Stake in the heart doesn't matter.
Oh, they have reflections.
Yes, they have reflections.
Because several scenes he passes mirrors and stuff.
And they're there, yeah. Which I never understood the Dracula lore of no mirrors. Is it because they have no soul?
Yeah, it's supposed to be like their soul is what would be reflected. I don't know.
It's that one's very, very strange, but at the same time, like, I wish that, like, there was a glaring... Film-wise, it would have been stupid. But, like, lore-wise, like, if they look in mirrors and you can't quite focus, it's kind of out of focus, it's kind of glaring, it's kind of, like, weird. Like, they can see themselves, but others are like, oh, it's foggy, I can't see. Like, I would have liked a little more mystery in that, but this is more about the story of Louis and Lestat rather than the history behind vampires. You don't find out anything.
No.
Anything about this. They don't even find out, like, who their maker is, like, who the originator is, how this came to be. Like, this first book came out in 1976. The next one didn't come out till 1985. So you had all of these questions that didn't even start to be answered until then. And even with Queen of the Damned, you got a lot more answers, but Queen of the Damned is like 4 books in. So while it's a really good continuation of the story and you get a lot of answers, people waited over a decade to get some of those answers.
You know what I'm surprised they've never done? I'm surprised they've never just done a, like, tried to do a Vampire Chronicles series.
That's what they are doing.
Oh, that it's not just going to be
They're starting
Interview?
with Interview with the Vampire, but I believe, and maybe I might be wrong, but I believe it should have just be the Vampire Chronicles, Anne Rice's Chronicles.
Yeah.
There is a lot of books. I was actually saving them on my wish list for Audible. We have Audible now. I should get it. Links in the show notes.
I like how you say the important information really fucking quiet.
I
so
know.
Nobody can hear it.
Get Audible. We have a code. That's the ad.
Audibletrial.com/grindhouse.
It's grind-house.
No, just Grindhouse.
Just Grindhouse. Look, I re-signed up for Audible last night and I have no idea how I did it. So, but I was saving it to my wish list and I'm like, damn, there are a lot of books. And then she stopped writing the books in 2002, and then it jumped to 2014 because she denounced all of this, went to Catholicism, which I thought was a weird thing. And then she wrote Christian books for a while, and then all of a sudden she went back, wrote 3 more books because I got another Sleeping Beauty book, which I was really excited about. But low-key, no hate, kind of sucks. I only got 100 pages in and I had to put it down. I didn't like it. So, no hate to you, Anne. I know you passed away. Rest in peace. But that last Sleeping Beauty book was not good. So, I'm worried about the last 3 books that she wrote for this series. But I'm actually going to try and Audible these and see how it goes. I'm getting so off topic on this one. But I feel like this one's more serious rather than funny like the last ones we've done.
Well, actually, that brings me to one of my notes. So from a movie from '94, the effects in this movie that showcase like the vampires' elevated abilities, like their strength and speed and stuff, those are all executed really well.
They're all practical, yeah.
Using wires and stuff like that. You can tell what's going on,
can.
but it still looks good. And they don't shy away from little comedy moments throughout.
They don't.
There's a few here and there, especially when they first bring Claudia into the family, and then like you're seeing like
what
shit
if I
that
told
she's
you?
doing
Never
wrong.
in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh, I killed the piano teacher. Sorry, I killed my seamstress.
Pushes corpse
Sorry.
over.
That is funny. Like, it shows you the dynamic between her and Lestat, where they're just like, oh, I don't give a fuck kind of people, where her with Louis is more of a romanticized kind of relationship.
Yeah.
There are hilarious moments. Like, the whole Theater of Vampires, that's fucking funny. They're vampires playing humans playing vampires.
I have a question about that.
Yes.
Because I wrote this question down, and I was not absolutely sure. So this big theater sequence is going on, and then part of this act, they bring in a woman.
Yes.
They bring the woman in, and they're like toiling with her, and then they feed on her.
Yes.
Is she part of the act, or is this an actual victim?
It's an actual victim.
That's what I thought.
Yes. Because it's there's this thing, it's vampire lore, I don't know if it's their lore, but fear makes them taste sweeter.
Yeah.
So pure fear, like she has no idea what's happening. She's wearing normal clothes. She looks like kind of like a
snatched
peasant
off
girl.
the street or something.
Yep. She's wearing no shoes. They strip her on stage, and I think Armand's powers are like of persuasion and manipulation, because she goes from like, oh, I don't want to die to okay, like
Yeah.
like, and every vampire has powers, so I feel like maybe he used his powers to lure her, and all of a sudden she's in front of like an audience of normal people, and these normal people think, oh, these are just people playing vampires. No, they're vampires playing people playing vampires, then killing and feeding this woman in front of you.
How very avant-garde.
Isn't that what she says?
Yeah.
Oh, and I love how Louis goes, monstrous.
Oh, God.
And I'm sitting there in the back. I'd be like, yo, this is some cool shit. Woo!
Something I didn't like in this was they show it's actually during the one sequence, the big fight sequence between it's like
Louis and
Claudia and
Claudia
Lestat.
and Lestat. Okay.
So it's like where she's like tearing up the house kind of
Yes.
thing. Like she scratches his face and you see his wounds instantly heal.
Yes.
Like immediately.
Yes.
And she cuts off her hair and her hair immediately grows back. Those were ideas that I thought were kind of just dumb.
Well, I mean, it's the idea of you're your perfect self.
You're locked
You are
in
locked
when you
in
returned.
that time when you died. So Lestat is locked as a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
Louis locked as a 25-year-old, and she's locked as a 5-year-old. And Madeline, I believe, is locked as a 30-year-old. So, and Armand was already like in his 30s. That's why he looks a little older. That's why he's locked in his 30s.
Yeah.
I like that. I like the fact that not only can you never age, but you can never change. You have to stay the exact same.
I guess.
It's fucking torture. It's hell.
Yeah.
Like, what if she wanted to rebel and dye her hair red? Is her hair magically just gonna change back to blonde?
That's the weird thing. Like, because by that same logic, it does. They also contradict it because when you see Louis in present day, he looks different. Like he's got sideburns and his hair. I think his hair is just pulled back.
His hair is just pulled back, but if you look, he's always had those sideburns.
Did he?
Yes, yeah. I believe that those have always been there. But if you look at it, when he's in the scene with the hooker and playing cards, he's got scruff. He's got facial hair.
Yeah.
So did he shave before he became a vampire? That's why he's so clean shaven. I would think, say you and I become vampires. I'm stuck as a 30-year-old chubby girl with half bleached, half not hair, and you're stuck with this glorious beard. But, like, if we were to dye our hair or we were to shave, like, our faces, would it grow back? Would it grow back instantly?
I would assume. I mean, hers came back literally in a second.
Instantly in front of us, yeah. Like, it changed in front of us to her perfect self, and then when she cut it off, I don't know. It's weird. I wish vampires had the choice to age up. Like, what if you were like, oh, I need to go into hiding. Can I age myself a little bit? Like, I wish vampires had that choice to, like, move their age around. That would be really cool if they could. They could hide.
Visually, I think this is a really good-looking movie.
Yeah.
One of my notes here is that, like, I felt like there were so many scenes that were presented almost like a painting that you were looking at. Like, there'd be the frame would be just this beautiful image with like deep shadows and like some really gorgeous lighting. There's like shots where I think it was Louis was like walking down towards the camera and he was just a silhouette and like the lighting was all behind him. It just looked, the smoke and fog, it looked awesome.
I feel like they had to emphasize the saturation of colors and playing with shadows because you never there was no sunlight. You couldn't be in day.
Yeah.
So it all had to be at night. So they had to play with how extravagant light had to be and to portray these beautiful creatures. And how much of a pain in the ass it probably was for them to do everything at night. I mean, they probably had sound stages and stuff like that, but the only light you ever saw was when Claudia was sneaking into Louis' coffin.
Yeah.
And you saw the sunlight just a little bit where it changed the whole room.
Yeah.
Just that little bit of sunlight made it brighter and happier. And then you get to the nighttime where it's all dim and dark and candlelit and just the whole movie has like this filter of mysteriousness without it actually being there.
Yeah.
It's kind of bomb. Kind of sucks that they can't walk around in daylight. They answer that in Queen of the Damned. Like, the farther down the bloodline, the more they have to adhere to the rules, but the closer they are to the originator, like Akasha, you can walk in the light because her blood is the purest of that whole, the demon Amel. at that point.
I'm not a huge fucking fan of Queen of the Damned.
I love Queen of the Damned because I was really getting into Aaliyah before she passed away. Really getting into Aaliyah back then. And I loved her performance. I thought she was great. I loved the girl that played Jessie. She was great. Still not a fan of Stuart Townsend, like, really at all. But I wanted to know more because I loved the Maharet storyline. The fact that she was one of the first vampires and she followed her bloodline. She had a baby and followed it all the way down to Jessie. We're going to watch Queen of the Damned just to educate her.
I don't...
It is.
I haven't seen that movie since it came out, so I have
high
no fucking idea.
fantasy, man. High fantasy. That's what this is. This is literally it's supernatural horror high fantasy. That's what it is. I have a trend with my movies.
I think you do.
Man, I gotta break out of this bullshit, huh?
Speaking of breaking out of this bullshit, we're gonna take a break, and we'll come back after the ad break.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled film talk for this important announcement. I know what you're thinking. Oh, God, not an ad. But trust me, if you have ever had a passing interest in podcasting, then you're gonna want to hear about Anchor. Anchor is a podcast platform by Spotify, and it is way easier to make a podcast with absolutely everything you need to capture your audience all in one place. Anchor has the tools to help you record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And choosing to host with Anchor means that you can distribute your podcast on all major listening platforms, like Spotify, naturally, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and many more. It also allows you to begin earning money with your show with no minimum listener requirements. Anchor was our first and only choice when we decided to start our show, and we cannot recommend it enough. So, if you have an idea to podcast, don't wait any longer. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. So, as you talked about, the scene where Claudia attacks Lestat, she's done with this shit. She's absolutely done with this bullshit. They have a big fight. She wants revenge for the fact that she was turned against her will as a child and she'll never be an adult. Cue the naked dead lady in the bed, which was like, ooh, hey, that lady's moldy. Like, that's gross. Then we get to the point, like, this movie is very self-explanatory. A lot of people have already seen it. Louis and Claudia travel the world, literally trying to find other vampires, and they are unsuccessful. It looks like they go to Egypt. They go to Greece. They go to Russia. I saw St. Petersburg Cathedral at one point. They go to all these places, and then they settle in Paris. They mention that the only ones they find are mindless husks of people. Like, it seems that these vampires just lost their way, or they were never fully sophisticated or elevated like they are. And when they find the theater of vampires, that's what it's called. I can't remember what it's called in French when they go to Paris. These people are a little more sophisticated, a little more elevated, but Armand is a very different person because he's been around at this point for almost 400, 500 years. He was turned into a vampire in 1591.
Yeah.
That's a long fucking time. But these other vampires they're different. They seem less polished, less, not educated, not the word. They seem stupid.
They're a little bit zanier, a little bit wacky. Like
the vampirism has gone to their head, like nothing can happen to them. Like they have, oh, the law is on our side. It's, you can't kill your own kind. And then we learn Armand's true nature, to where Armand really wants Louis as a companion because, like Lestat, Louis brings something to that companionship. He's adapts better at the new world. He's a little bit of a mortal side, like he's very different. So Armand kind of lets the other vampires take them and hurt them. Right before that, he turns Madeline because Claudia realizes, you're going to leave me, so I want my own companion. So she finds a woman who lost a daughter at the same age. So, like, more or less, like, she will be my mother. You can leave. It's fine. I will have my companion.
Yeah.
Louis turns Madeline, and what's left of his mortality literally dies with Madeline, because it's like, that's one hell of a thing you have to do to somebody. You literally have to let them almost kill you again to become a vampire. And that's got to do something to you psychologically. To where Louis a very different person after he turns Madeline. Very different. He's not the Louis that I like. He's like, oh, okay, well, is this what turning other vampires does? It turns you more into that, like, crass husk of a vampire. So then we have my favorite scene, but not, is where they put Louis in a coffin upside down in a wall and brick him in there. And they put Madeline and Claudia in a fucking...
It's like a well, almost.
It's a turret tower, but with a grate on top.
Yeah.
It's not sealed. So when dawn comes, they fucking burn Claudia and newly turned Madeline into dust. That's a fucking brutal way to kill somebody.
Yeah.
Like, granted, she killed Lestat twice. Or she killed Lestat the first time. Louis killed him the second time.
Yeah.
But even Armand says, I knew Lestat well enough to not mourn his passing. Like, that makes you go, they had history.
Yeah.
It was a good history. But nobody says any, like, there's no explanation. I would have loved Armand to at least say, I knew Lestat, blah, 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 blah. In the books, Armand was part of a cult that Lestat destroyed.
Okay.
So, I believe that, I'm just going off, like, cliff notes that I read really quickly. But I believe Armand was part of a cult. If I'm wrong, please call me out that I'm wrong. But they have history somewhere down the line. With his maker, Marquez, and Armand, and Lestat. Like, they all know each other, and they just don't want to talk about it. But the fact that he looks at Louis and says, I knew him well enough to not mourn his passing. So we knew Lestat passed.
Yeah, you just get a sense that there was some past issues there.
Yeah, which he was like, oh no, I don't care that you killed him. They care that you killed him. They care you killed your own kind, and it's forbidden. Just like it's forbidden to have a child as a vampire. So they put Madeline and Claudia in a roofless fucking tower and let them burn at high noon. And holy shit, now I've seen a lot of people say, why didn't Madeline just hide her under her dress?
I thought that too.
Because she's a vampire, her skin instantly got set on fire and the dress was on fire.
Yeah.
Or why didn't she just take the dress off and hide her under it? Like, there are so many theories that Madeline could have sacrificed herself to save Claudia, but that's not the point.
No.
The point was Claudia had to die for Louis to lose what was left of his mortality.
Right.
And sucks story-wise, I would love to have seen what Claudia would have been older. Like, could you imagine a 200-year-old childlike vampire? Oof.
Yeah.
She was a ruthless fucking killer as a little kid.
Yeah.
Imagine what a 200-year-old 5-year-old will do to people mentally.
That'd be brutal.
Yeah, that'd be. So after that, Louis kind of figures out Armand's purpose and was like, you let them do this. You wanted me to destroy your theater, Coven, the rest of them, because they weren't giving you the satisfaction of companions like you wanted. But you also betrayed me by killing her. So I'm going to leave you alone. I'm going to go do my own thing. Live with your guilt. Even though you say you have no regrets, you're going to have a regret because you did this to get me and now I'm going to walk away. That's how I take that scene. And after that, he ends up back in New Orleans. And through the magic of film, he's able to see his sunrise, colors that he hasn't in years.
That was a nice touch for me.
Very nice touch, yeah.
Because, like, you're telling a story throughout, like, time before technology, for the most part. And he lives up through the point of the development of the fucking industry that I've given my life to.
Yes, you
so
see Nosferatu, you see Gone with the Wind, and then you see Superman with that beautiful blues and the sunrise, and he's just like,
That was cool.
That was cool because it makes you realize that Louis like, oh my god, this is what I was missing for like 200 years.
Yeah.
And of course, he's in 1988, and he definitely looks like he stepped out of the pages of fucking Miami Vice with the khaki outfit and the white shirt and the long Fabio hair. Every time I see that scene, I'm like, Brad. Brad, cut your hair. Because we know that was his real hair at that point.
I came across an interesting fact here about Brad Pitt in this movie. So apparently he did an interview with Entertainment Weekly in September of 2011 where they discussed this part. Apparently in this interview he revealed that he had such a miserable experience making this movie.
Really?
He recalled that the discomfort of the makeup and the colored contacts and filming in enclosed dark areas for so long. Apparently at one point he called his friend and producer David Geffen and begged him for a way out off the production.
Oh my god.
But unfortunately, the only way he could get out of it, he would have had to pay the production $40 million. So he just toughed it out for the rest of the shoot.
Oh, Brad.
Which was still months.
I see why. This must have been a hell of a toll on these guys.
Yeah.
Dark, enclosed space. I mean, there were some moments where it was like he had to be locked in a coffin and put in a wall. I don't care if it's for an hour or 10 minutes. Psychologically, like, that does shit to you, you know? I feel for you, Brad, but how much money did you make off this movie? $40 million?
But he has the distinct pleasure of being Kirsten Dunst's first on-screen kiss.
Did you feel iffy about that too? Like, it's right before the redheaded goes, "It's time for justice, little one." I love that. That is one of my, like, that moment's like, bam! But, like, right there, I'm like, Kirsten, don't do it. Kirsten, ew! It's icky. It's like, I'm gonna make out with this 20-year-old dude. Like, and then she's a little kid, so it was like, okay, just give him a little peck on the lips. But it's like, ugh. Scary. Why did your face just went interesting?
Apparently, in I don't even know what year this was, but Anne Rice met with Tom Hanks about playing Lestat at one point.
Oh!
I can see Tom Hanks as maybe the Christian Slater part.
Yeah, but Tom Hanks is Lestat.
That would have been weird.
Tom Hanks is pure and sweet. He couldn't play that fucking part.
No.
Who? If you could do it now.
We're not at that yet.
But that's a question, like, I want to know.
Do you want to get to the questions?
We're not there yet. We're almost there, because this movie's pretty cut and dry.
We're getting there.
So, in 1988, Lestat goes to see a movie, and he's leaving, and he can smell death. He's like, Lestat, old buddy! He finds Lestat, and Lestat is now trying to cope with being in the world again. He must have, after the fire and everything, he must have gone into a deep sleep. Like, vampires, in this world, vampires can sleep for hundreds of years. He must have slept for a very long time, woke up when he felt Louis' presence back in New Orleans. And, you know, at that point, just woke back up and was hoping, do you want to be companions again? Like, nah, bitch, I don't want this. I'm walking away. And it's nice to know that Louis just told the story and finished it with, he's empty. And Daniel was like, no, that's a terrible way to end this. It's like, what were you expecting? He lost, this vampire lost everything over 150 years prior to this. 130. Well, yeah, 130, 140. So it's like, were you expecting him to be like, now everything's roses? No, he is still a shell of anything walking around because Claudia was the love of his life, basically. And now it's like, he doesn't have a companion. He's just a Roman vampire, just killing to eat and existing. And I would like to see, by reading the books, what happens to Louis, because I don't know. We know what happens to Lestat, but I don't know what happens to Louis.
I don't know.
And it just ends there with Lestat going, "Hey Daniel, you want to be a vampire?" You know, and that's it. Like,
I think that was a cool way to end the movie.
it was a cool way, but I wish they would have touched on it. Queen of the Damned, like, "Hey, what happened to Daniel?"
Don't worry about it.
Like, but yeah, I love this movie. I adore this movie. But as somebody who really is getting into a lot of, I would say, folklore, I would say, like, kind of more of those stories, like vampires, werewolves, witches, stuff like that, and learning the true nature behind this stuff, they're portrayed really weird. I don't know if weird is the way.
I mean, it's a unique
It's
take.
too romanticized.
Yeah.
Like, they still bring the nature of the rage and the anger and the monsters that they are, but everything's just so beautiful. And it's like, I don't want to see beauty. I want to see the dark side. You know? There's another famous vampire story out there that this podcast will never touch. Ever. But shout out to Robert Pattinson for playing one hell of a fucking Batman, dude.
Oh,
Holy
God.
hell. But Twilight's even worse. Twilight's
I don't even want to fucking talk about Twilight.
Twilight vampires. I've never seen Twilight. I don't like the story. I read part of the first book. I didn't like it. It's not my kind of thing. The moment Edward sparkled in the light, shut that book and I put it down. I went, nope, these aren't vampires to me. Sorry, kids.
Closing questions?
Closing questions.
Overall thoughts on the film?
I love it. I love this movie. I will always put it on for something. But this movie has always left me wanting more. I want more. I want the questions that Louis was asking. I want to see more of, Claudia. I want to see more of Lestat. I want to see more of Louis. This is a great film because it literally does what you love. It takes a section of life and slams it to you and then takes it away. You get nothing else. You don't know everything that started it. You don't know everything that ended it. You get a section. Granted, it's like a 200-year-old section, but I love it. I want more. That's my... What about you?
All right. I guess I'm kind of lukewarm.
Okay.
Let's say, like, I don't love it. I don't hate it.
It's a film.
I think the movie, it's got great performances. Effects are good. The source material is very present. There's a lot of details throughout about the vampire's lore and everything, which is good. I've never been a fan of vampires, so I tried to look at this more from like the filmmaking standpoint and everything, and it's all right. I don't know. I didn't.
So you don't see the hype behind it.
No. And
It was for the ladies.
I just don't think it was for me.
No.
Like, I don't think I'm the audience for this movie.
And I know going into this, I'm like, he's not gonna like this. Like, but
Don't hate it.
it is, from a filmmaker standpoint, the way they had to do a lot of this stuff and the practicality. There's no CGI. There's barely any green screen. There's only a few green screen scenes.
There's a couple of very small, very minor.
Very subtle, and it's during
CG
when the theater is going up.
Yeah.
But they had to. Like, that's a huge theater that's going up in flames. How are you really safely going to do that one?
Right.
But honestly, I knew going into this you wouldn't like it, but this is one of my favorite movies, and I wanted to touch on this one early in the podcast because there's gonna be better grindhouse vampire stories.
Doubt it.
This is the most famous in our wheelhouse. There has got to be a weirder, stranger vampire story.
They'll be weirder and stranger,
But are they grindhouse?
better.
But that's one of my things. I want to, like, my favorite movies, I want to find grindhouse kinds. I'm looking at you, I'm going to find a grindhouse vampire story. And it's going to be stupid. I know it, but it's going to be great.
I mean, it won't be hard to find. But...
No, it's probably going to be in another language. We're going to have to go after Giallo shit.
Favorites.
Favorite. I hate to say it. I'm such a masochist, but I love the scene where they burn. I love it. It's heart-wrenching. It's gut-wrenching. I hate getting into it every time. But just seeing the pain that's on Claudia's eyes as she's like, I'm dying. I'm going to die. I'm just like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And my favorite line is, never in the house. Because I love that little thing that Kirsten does. What about you? Any favorites at all from this?
I think just one. It was it's really one shot, but where it's right after she poisons Lestat, and it does that shot of him where he's like on the floor and the camera moves like this around him slightly.
Yeah.
And he's like thinning out.
That's
and,
the bit of
like,
CG. That's another bit of CG
melting
that's
a little
done
bit.
really well too.
Like that one, I honestly, it was hard to tell if it was enhanced with CG or if it was like some kind of like transition with puppetry.
Honestly, it could have
like,
been both.
It looked really good, but I think that was probably my only real favorite part. Does it work?
Soft yes.
Soft yes.
Soft yes. So it works in the sense of it's a great telling of the book. But I know for a fact there's a lot more stuff that could have been added, that could have been explained. But it's only because I've read the book and I love the book much better.
Yeah.
I got like an 80% way through the book, and unfortunately I didn't finish the book because I had it in my purse years ago, and there was an incident with a water bottle and I lost that book. It was a stripped cover book that an old friend of mine gave me. So it was like a book that was just going to be tossed.
Yeah.
So it had no cover, no protection. So when it got wet, it ruined the whole book. And I've never gone back to it, but I love this story. I think it's great. But yeah, soft yes, because there are moments that don't work for me. Like, I would say the moments that don't work for me are a lot of the questionable things that Lestat does. I hate it. It pisses me off. Where my choice of actor, Tom Cruise, I don't like the fact that he's this actor, but I can't see anybody else as Lestat. Even when Stuart Townsend was Lestat in Queen of the Damned, I didn't like him. I was hoping for Tom Cruise, like younger Top Gun Tom Cruise, to come bare-lassing through the door and be there as that character. I'm saying soft yes, because I'm not gonna be like, oh my god, yes, this works totally. Even you see it some bits it doesn't, but maybe that's because we've got better stories now, much better stories.
It's hard for me to say that it works for me.
Yeah.
Just because I don't like vampires in general. So from a filmmaking standpoint, for the most part, for a 94 movie, it works, but it doesn't work for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but you see where I'm going with it's a soft yes.
Yeah, I guess so.
Even though I love this movie, I know this movie has problems.
Right.
So.
Would you recommend it?
I would. I'd always recommend Interview. I recommend Interview, and I get told I'm not watching that constantly. So, yeah.
I would recommend it to the right people. Like, if you like vampires, yeah, it's quintessential.
If you like cheesy romances.
Yeah, I guess.
Fabio type romances.
If you like period.
Latent homosexual tendencies.
Yeah, alright. I'll give you that one.
There are moments where I'm like, Antonio and Brad kiss. Antonio and Brad kiss.
It's already happening, but how would you do this today?
It's already happening, and I am leaving. My honest opinion was no, leave it where it is, but It's happening as a limited series on AMC. I don't know, or yeah, it's happening as a limited series. I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm leaving that into their hands. Like the Lord of the Rings, the Power of the Ring, or the Power of the Rings. I don't know if it's an S or not at the end. I'm leaving it in their hands. I'm excited to see where it comes from. I'm going into it as it's a standalone piece, though. Just like I'm going into the Lord of the Rings, the Power of the Rings. It's a standalone piece. Leave Anne Rice out of it. Leave Tolkien out of it. Like, let's just...
Well, you can't leave Tolkien
no,
out of it.
yeah, but...
Leave Peter Jackson out of it.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Peter Jackson and Tolkien are, like, synonymous now. But let's see what happened, kids. Let's see what happens.
I actually have an answer for this.
What?
So I found myself enjoying the idea of the interview style of the film. So it's like a vampire being interviewed about his life.
Yeah.
That's one thing I was hoping would make this viewing better for me. Unfortunately, it's very minimal throughout this movie. But like, I kept finding myself wishing there was more of that. It's like, I want to spend more time with that Louis and Daniel. So, I think if I were to do this now, and nobody else will fucking agree with me on this, and I promise you, you won't either, but I would love to see a version of this story told where we never leave that conversation.
So it's all up to the imagination.
So the entire thing is that interview taking place, them talking back and forth in that little apartment room, and everything is left to the imagination. And you just let those two actors and their performances flourish.
That would be a good stage play.
I would love that.
That would be amazing, to where you could, like, possibly in the background have people acting out scenes, but it's like never crystal clear. It's always behind like curtains or something. That would, honestly, you said I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't do a show. I would do a play.
See, I would. Like, so you haven't seen this yet, at least, but there's a movie called Sunset Limited with Tommy Lee Jones and Samuel L. Jackson. The whole movie takes place in an apartment.
You've told me about this, yes.
It's literally just the two men talking. It never leaves the apartment. In the movie, they're talking about like their beliefs and religion and stuff, and it's so fucking powerful because you're just experiencing their performances back and forth. I feel like that same method could be applied to this between Louis and Daniel, and you just live it out. I feel like it would be so good. You'd have to get the right actors to play those two characters, but it would be fucking powerful.
Yeah.
And I would love to see that.
That would be.
That's how I would do it.
That would be badass. Very badass. No, I agree with that. I would make it a play, though. To me, it would be more believable as a stage play where you can't rely on technology or other means of carrying out the scene. It would be the two people there. Like that, kind of like what 12 Angry Jurors, the play is. It's just those 12 people in that room discussing the case. The two people in that room discussing the interview, discussing his life. You never get to see anybody's faces. You never get to see the location.
Exactly.
It's just like, your imagination has to play this out.
I feel like if you did that, if you just put these two people in that room, had them just play out the scene, the conversation, and like you used camera movement to emphasize the feelings and the music of like the underscore and all that, and the lighting, and you just let it all happen, especially in that type of apartment set. Like,
it's that corner, that weird edge corner apartment. Yeah,
like you could fucking really sell that.
You could.
That's how I feel about it.
All right. I'm with you on this. I'm with you.
Big final question, is it mainstream, exploitation, or other?
I believe it is both mainstream and other. Mainstream because it became it's a mainstream popular movie now. But other because back then it was a high fantasy. It was something different. Nowadays, these guys' careers were fucking launched with this movie. Everybody in this. Like, obviously, Antonio Banderas still had other movies, like you had said, Desperado and Once Upon a Time in Mexico. I know that was a lot later. But Desperado was around the 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah, I can't remember what year exactly.
Brad Pitt was, Legends of the Fall and a couple other movies. Tom Cruise already had a big name in the 80s, but this is like peak of career. Like, Kirsten Dunst. Did anybody know who she was before this? You knew who she was after. That's why I say mainstream, but from when it was released in 94, other, because it was a very different type of movie. It wasn't mainstream back then.
Alright, yeah. I would probably say that it's mainstream. Like, pure and simple. I don't think it tries to be anything more than what any mainstream director would give you. I do think that they try that I forgot his name already. The director of this, Neil Jordan.
Yep.
I think he tried to give you a good adaptation of a story, and he succeeded. But it doesn't try to push the boundaries, really, in my opinion. Maybe at the time, but I personally don't see it as anything more than just another mainstream movie.
What else has Neil Jordan done? The Crying Games, Greta, Breakfast on Pluto, The Brave One. I don't know anything else he's done. The Crying Game I know, but that's it.
His movies aren't generally very big. This is probably the biggest one. Do you have anything else you'd like to say about Interview with a Vampire?
I'm looking forward to what becomes of the new series. I'm looking forward to using our Audible subscription to listen to Interview with the Vampire, because I don't have a copy anymore. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the fact that this is in the archive. I have a tape of it, which we don't know where the tape is right now. It's somewhere in the house. We'll eventually put it up on Instagram with a picture. I'm happy it's in the archive. I think I'm good for it for now. I can put it away. I don't think I'll be watching this one for a little bit. I think this is the second or third viewing in like 6 months.
Yeah.
So, what about you?
No.
Are you just done with the vampires?
I think I'm done with this movie for sure.
He will not be watching this one ever again. Sorry, guys. Going on the shelf.
That wraps up our conversation on Interview with the Vampire. Don't go anywhere just yet. Stay tuned for the coming attractions.
The night of the fall is finally here. For Chris, Cindy, and JC. It's going to be the best night of their lives. But tonight is also the night of the creeps. From a world unknown comes a nightmare unimagined. First, they are under you, around you, on you, and then inside you.
They get in through your mouth, and you walk around while they incubate, even if you're dead.
They are a new breed of terror.
Freeze!
They are a different kind of horror.
Zombies, exploding heads, creepy crawlies. We could have a little problem.
The creeps are taking over.
Oh my God, got good news and bad news, girls. The good news is your dates are here.
What's the bad news?
They're dead.
You have never had a night like this. Night of the Creeps. If you scream, you're dead.
Leah, thrill me.
Good news is your date's here. Bad news is the dead. I love that man so much.
We are watching Fred Decker's Night of the Creeps.
We both, okay, I've seen this one recently, probably within the last, 2 years. I never heard of it before you showed it to me. You had a t-shirt of a dude's hand coming in through a window, open the door.
A poster of it right there,
Yep.
just out of frame for
Just
you.
out of frame, there's a poster of it. It's been here forever. That, Reanimator, and then what's the other one over there? Maniac, right?
Maniac.
Maniac. We have 3 posters in the house. They're all his horror shit. I can't have any of mine up. There's just no wall space, actually. But, I highly enjoyed this movie. Highly. I love that actor.
Which actor?
Thrill me.
Oh, Tom Atkins.
Tom Atkins. I didn't know who the fuck Tom Atkins was till I met you. And now, oh, buddy. Love this man. I'm excited to see this again. Because the first time I watched it, I had to pay attention. This time I can watch and observe. And I'm thrilled to do it. Whereas I didn't have to take any notes for this movie because I know it beat for beat. You don't have to. You literally looked at me and said, we could do this one right now if you didn't have to rewatch it.
Yeah.
Because you know this one like the back of your hand.
I love Night of the Creeps. It is one of those movies that, I've grown up with. I've seen a million times. It's right up there alongside Monster Squad and Fright Night, which we will eventually get to both of those as well. But
Fright Night, I only know that David Tennant was in the redo.
Yeah.
Or the reimagine or whatever. And Monster Squad, I don't know what it is. You have a poster of Wolfman's Got Nards signed, which is the documentary for Monster Squad.
Yeah, because I went to
It was like the Halloween
Salem with
thing.
a friend, and we met Andre Gower, who directed the documentary about Wolfman's Got Nards, or about Monster Squad, called Wolfman's Got Nards.
And I got him Wolfman's Got Nards and Monster Squad for Christmas,
Yes.
knowing that they were going to be podcast pick, or at least knowing Monster Squad was going to be a podcast pick. So
Eventually we will get to those.
I'm excited to see those.
But
I really am, because I love watching stuff that you get excited about. My movies that I get excited about, you're like, dear God. But yours, I'm highly interested in all the horror movies that you're really excited about.
there's quite a few, and I think I've shown you a good chunk of them.
yeah.
But this is one of my all-time favorites. I love this
so
fucking
much to say
movie.
about this movie. It's gonna be great.
Yes. But for now, for more recommendations on films or coffees you should check out, if you want to check out our movie collection, or just see some fun behind the scenes, or if you want to chat with us, recommend us some movies, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Grindhouse Podcast. We're on Twitter at GrindhouseCast. If you'd like to hang out with and chat with Leah, she's on our Discord.
Come talk to me.
That's also at Grindhouse Podcast. Listen to us, give us 5 stars on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get your morning fix. New episodes come out first thing every Monday morning. If you're listening to the podcast and you'd like a more visual experience, subscribe to us on YouTube, where you can get every single episode in its entirety with video.
What up, buddy?
If you like what we're doing and you want to show your support, all that information is going to be down in the show notes as well. Until next week, I'm Sean.
I'm Leah.
Thank you for listening, and keep watching.
Good night, kids.
Good night, Dad.
the shocking nature of many scenes in this film, it is definitely not recommended for the squeamish.